I'm going to start. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. I usually teach with PowerPoints, so you're going to see a lot of PowerPoints coming up most of the time. And we're going to start with just a motivation and a short Medicine Buddha practice. Okay, let me just move this. Share my PowerPoint. Okay. So because I think probably because of time, we only have 3 classes, the main puja I'm going to focus on is the Medicine Buddha Puja. But actually, once you understand the points of the ritual with the Medicine Buddha, you can also understand, the 2 main pujas we're going to do is Medicine Buddha and Tara Puja. So I may not have much time to talk about the benefits of the Tara Puja. I'm going to talk about the benefits of the Medicine Buddha Puja, Medicine Buddha practice, and of course how you do it and why we do puja and ritual. But once we go over the key points of this puja, the elements of the puja, you can actually just apply that similarly to the Tara Puja. The layout is quite similar, the prayers are quite similar, the meaning behind is quite similar. There's different benefits to each puja, but how you do the puja is very similar, because of the elements of it and the different prayers, they're similar. So I'm hoping that if we do one, it sort of covers both, because these are the 2 main pujas, especially as beginners. These are the 2 main we sort of encourage to come to, to join in. They're a little bit easier to connect with. The ones at the level of High Yoga Tantra, a different level of Tantra, because these pujas all belong to Tantra, Tantric teachings. And this one is a Kriya Tantra practice, lower Tantra. So, but once you kind of get the elements of one, you can pretty much transfer that knowledge to the Tara Puja, outside of maybe understanding some of the specific benefits to the Tara Puja, because each of these deities have specific benefits. But certainly how we do and perform the puja, we can learn through this one and apply it to the Tara Puja. These are the 2 main ones that are centres that we do in order for success of the centre, and also to benefit others, in our lives, benefit ourselves for healing and benefit others. And as we'll see, some of the other benefits that come along in this Medicine Buddha Puja ritual. So because we're focused mainly on that, I wanted to start with, as usually do at the start of teachings, just start with a little bit, 10 minutes of meditation and reciting refuge, and doing a few of the Medicine Buddha mantra. So take a couple of minutes just to settle on your cushion, into your body and on your cushion, just through breath and awareness, maybe doing a short scan of the body. Been working today, I just want to settle that busy mind, so connecting with the breath, and just for a minute, just relaxing into the body with breath and awareness. Releasing any tension as we go down through the face, back of the neck, shoulders, using breath and awareness to just ground ourselves a little bit more in the body and settle the mind. And in that space, just bringing about our own intention, bringing to mind the clarity of our own motivation, intention for coming here. And because we are, learning here, studying Buddhist ritual, we're going to use Buddha, Dharma and Sangha as our object of refuge. They're coming from all these praxis, prayers, teachings are coming from the Buddha. So for the purpose of this class, our spiritual refuge is the Buddha, teacher, the Dharma, spiritual teachings, and the assembly practitioners, the Sangha. That's our home, as we would say, our spiritual home, in terms of, it's particularly this class, and for those of us who have taken refuge already. And since we are going to discuss the Medicine Buddha ritual, puja, we're just going to take refuge in the Medicine Buddha as the embodiment of all the Buddhas, imagining the Buddha appearing on our crown, spontaneously. The quality enlightened mind consciousness is that whenever we think about the Buddhas, they can appear spontaneously on our crowns, in the space before us, in our presence. So we try to feel that presence on our crown, seated on a lotus, very soft lotus and moon cushion. Appears, as we see in the image, the Medicine Buddha, holding this bowl in the left hand filled with nectar, alms bowl. In his right hand he's holding the stem of an arura plant that has the power to purify all external and internal disease, the disease of the body, disease of the mind. And he has this kind of rich blue colour that's actually more like the colour of a very deep blue, clear sky. There's nothing solid or concrete about his body. It's completely translucent but alive and vibrant. So when we do puja, ritual, any kind of meditation related to Tantra, the reason for visualizing is to really bring, we're trying to bring that quality into our mind. We visualize the external Buddha in order to awaken this quality, the internal Buddha within us, bringing it to our mind's eye and slowly bringing that visualization, slowly that quality to awaken within us. It's a method to do that. So feeling that presence, we recite together, twice in Tibetan, once in English, refuge. Sangye chodan sogi chognamna janju bardu dagi kyapsuchi dagi chen sogi be sonangi rola penjir sangye drupar sho sangye chodan sogi chognamna janju bardu dagi kyapsuchi dagi chen sogi be sonangi rola penjir sangye drupar Shog. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. And then streaming from the heart of Medicine Buddha, we visualize light and nectar as we recite the Medicine Buddha mantra, feeling that all our disease, spirit harm, negative karmas, all negative energy, our body, speech and mind get completely purified. So this is just really creating an initial connection, if we don't have one already, with the Medicine Buddha and the mantra. getting a feeling, a sense of that as we go into the class. And also just making, at the beginning, we always do prayers to make our mind more receptive, more clean, clear, to hear and receive the teachings. Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugadi Soha Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugadi Soha Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugati Soha Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugati Soha Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugati Soha Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugati Soha Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugati Soha Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugati Soha Tayada Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raza Samugati Soha. And in that space, just taking a moment to affirm our motivation. May this class not just benefit me, but bring peace, happiness, and all the causes of happiness up to liberation and enlightenment for all sentient beings. So as much as possible, even though right now, we don't have bodhicitta, wisdom realizing emptiness, these are the two goals on the spiritual path, and the Buddhist path, we have to make this effortful motivation, we just need to plant the seeds always to develop these awakening qualities. Wisdom realizing emptiness and the mind of bodhicitta, may they ripen in me and all sentient beings as quickly as possible. By virtue of this class, by virtue of me listening, reflecting and meditating on the teachings, may that happen. All right. So the class, this is more or less what we're going to cover in the class. What is puja? Why we need puja. When are the best times to do these? The specific benefits of Medicine Buddha practice and the mantra. And then how to perform the aspects of this puja, which include the offering sections, the 7-limb prayer, the mandala offering. And also, I want to hopefully have time to include how we do the mudras. For some of us who have been doing these pujas for a while, we may not know how to do the mudras, right? Mudras are hand gestures. So that makes also the puja really meaningful in a way where you can engage more physically with the puja, and using your body as an offering. So we're going to go in a little bit about mudras, some of the mudras we use. And also for those who have received initiation, the Medicine Buddha or any Kriya Tantra initiation, that you can then use the Dorje and bell. So I'm also hoping to have time for us to be able to show how to use the Dorje and bell. So this is, so we hopefully by the end of the class, when we do puja, we feel like we're more engaged, we understand the meaning, we know how to meditate a bit more, and we can also maybe do some of these mudras and use the Dorje and bell, use more musical instruments to make the puja more powerful. Okay, so what is puja? Asha knows a lot about puja. For the Indians, they know all about puja, So this makes total sense to Asha, But for Westerners, yes, in the church, and there's a lot of ritual, but we get, we don't understand the meaning. So when we enter into the Dharma, into Buddhist practice, or those who enter in the Hindu practice, we have a bit of an aversion sometimes to ritual, It takes us a while to connect with the meaning, why we're doing it. It can feel a bit empty if we've maybe grown up in places where we were just going to church and we did some certain rituals and we didn't really understand it, So hopefully by the end of this we have a bit more understanding of how puja, it really is a way to benefit our mind, It's a very powerful way to benefit our mind. So in Sanskrit, it's a Sanskrit word puja, and it means the act of worship, homage, or reverence, in the level of Sanskrit. But if we look more into the Tibetan word, it's translated as chopa. Chopa means offering. And this is the way my teacher, Kyabsir Lama Chopa Rinpoche, he really emphasised this part, this meaning of offering. What we're doing here is we're offering. And I want to talk about the offering practice a little bit more next week, how that's very key in puja practice. How offering, this practice of offering in many levels, different levels, outer, inner, we can even say secret level, really, really benefits our mind. How we need to continually develop that on the spiritual path, and how puja is a key way to do that, So these are the two kind of, meanings of puja. Going in a little bit more deeply from there. So we have three levels of meaning of puja. We have the outer meaning of puja, or we can say ritual as well. There's many rituals in this tradition. So whether we do a puja, there's a Medicine Buddha Puja, there's a very simple Medicine Buddha practice. It's not as long as the puja, but it's also got similar key elements in it. There's Tara Puja, there's Tara practice, and they all kind of fall under the category of Tantra, or which involve ritual, so using ritual to benefit our minds. So an outer meaning of puja, ritual. Puja is a ritual performance. Here we have this is our monastery in Nepal. So, of course, in the monastery, they do many pujas, many rituals, but we don't have to leave it in the rituals just for the monastics, yeah? They're for everyone. We can also do, but they're done constantly in the monastery for a very important reason, and we'll discover that more as we find out about the benefits of puja. So what is puja? Yeah, it's a ritual performance typically conducted in temples, monasteries, or monasteries, and now they're conducted a lot in centres, in Buddhist centres around the world. Not just in the FPMT, but many other Buddhist organisations, they do many, many pujas, So it involves chanting prayers such as refuge and bodhicitta, visualisation, mantra recitation, gestures. So that's another word for mudras. Our word for mudras. Using hand gestures, making offerings and paying homage, as it says in the first slide, So here we're making off. So the offering part really is offering all these prayers, They become an offering of our practice in a way. And yes, the homage part is paying homage, or really what we're saying when we're paying homage is the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas don't need us to pay homage. What we're trying to do is connect with the particular qualities, prayers, wishes and aspirations for us of that particular deity, which we're going to look into more as we go into the benefits of the Medicine Buddha practice. So it's not really like paying homage in a way. We're paying homage for a reason, because that brings us closer. We're praising the qualities of that being because we want that quality to ripen in us. I mean, in a nutshell, all the deities have embodied fully compassion, fully bodhicitta, fully the wisdom realising emptiness, fully the power to benefit us in a very extensive way. They all embody that, but each one has particular qualities, So yeah, basically this is the kind of the style how what pujas involves, and often in many pujas, as we've seen the Medicine Buddha practice, it becomes easier after you do it 2 or 3 times. There's a lot of repetition of these prayers, these mantras, the making offerings. We do it many times just to make it more powerful, not just doing it one time. So there becomes a lot of repetition, which from the other side makes it easier because we become familiar more easily with the practice through the power of repetition, familiarity. And this is what we see across the board in Buddhist practice and meditation. Meditation means becoming familiar with certain states of mind. So similarly, in ritual, we do these prayers, a few times throughout the ritual. So we become familiar with us and they ripen more quickly in our mental continuum. So that's the outer meaning. So the outer meaning basically means, and another level, to continue. So also what we do on an outer level is, we set up the altar. We set up an altar, we do bowls, we make offerings, So that's the kind of outer ritual of starting with putting certain offerings like lights and water bowl offerings and flowers, setting it out in a certain way. So that's the outer meaning. The outer aspect of ritual is doing that. But then the inner meaning, when we get to the inner meaning of ritual, welcome Urs, you just popped in. Nice to see you. So there's an inner meaning of ritual. As I say, it's a repetitive action or aspect that, because of that repetition, it's awakening the deeper inner meaning within us. And as Venerable Sarah very nicely says, we have for this class, mostly, and maybe I can ask Bay to put it up on the chat, as I have used in other classes, the main book I'm using is The Power of Mantra by Lama Chopa Rinpoche. So some of you might have purchased that already, and that actually goes over all the power of different deities, their mantras, in a succinct way, not in a deep way, but in a way where we can grasp the essence of the different deities, Tara, Vajrasattva, Medicine Buddha, like that. And there's also another book, I'm not sure it's available, but I also use this book because we've done what we call ritual or introductions to rituals within our organisation, where we do maybe a weekend for people who are interested to lead pujas, So we have a book called Ritual and Realisation. It's a little bit bit bigger, and it goes through, I've also pulled from that book. I don't know if it's available on FPMT, but that's called Ritual and Realisation. So in that booklet, Venerable Sarah says, doing ritual practice is like blowing on a flame to start a fire. If you keep blowing, eventually the fire will flame up. By touching the same points over and over again in ritual, we cause the flame of the teachings to flame up in our heart. So I thought that was quite a nice analogy. So that's why you have this repetition in the ritual. You're sort of touching these points. The outer aspect of the ritual has a power to kind of awaken something within us, ignite something in us. As it continues, if we are sick, we might seek acupuncture treatments which stimulate the right points, so our energy flows in a proper way. So in a similar way, ritual actually stimulates different points to help our mental and spiritual energy flow in the right direction. So just a couple of analogies of why, why we're using this familiarity in ritual, this kind of repetitive prayers. We do maybe 3-4 times. I think in the Tara Puja, we do 4 rounds of the same prayers. The Medicine Buddha Puja, because there are 7 Medicine Buddhas plus Shakyamuni Buddha, we do the same prayers, chanting their names, praising them, doing the 7-limb offering, chanting their prayers and aspirations for us. We repeat that 7 times each, That's why, actually, over a few times, the pujas themselves are quite easy to follow, even though they look complicated in the beginning, because we're trying to ripen, it's a method to ripen their prayers, their qualities, their abilities within us as power of repetition, alongside the power of the outer offerings on the altar. So the outer ritual, on the outer level, it's like we set these offerings in a certain way, which again we're going to go through in the last class when we go through some of the outer aspects of the ritual. We actually set up the puja in a certain way, so it draws the bowls, certain types of offerings. It kind of magnetizes that Buddha to that place, to that if you got them in the house, in the centre, in the gompa, it's kind of like magnetising the power of that particular Buddhas to come there, And then slowly we receive the blessing and the inner quality that starts to awaken within us. So the inner meaning continued. If we look a little bit more deeply into puja, it's derived from pu, which means purify or flower. Is this resonating with you, Asha? I want to see what Asha's saying. Would you agree, Asha? I'm trying to find you. I've not got everybody.
I didn't know actually.
Pardon? You're echoing.
I said that I didn't know the meaning of pu and ja this way, so I'm learning. Thank you so much.
Well, I think it's quite a beautiful interpretation, and of course, Sanskrit's got layers of meaning, hasn't it? So I think this might not be the only meaning, and that's what's beautiful about the Sanskrit language. It's so rich because it has all these layers of meaning. So one layer is pu means to purify or flower, and ja means to honour or worship. So again, we have it here, kind of a little bit deeper meaning. So what we're trying to do is purify the mind. It's the aspect of one aspect of the inner meaning of puja is purifying, clearing away that which we don't want, and then awakening within us, giving birth to that which we do want. And hopefully in a quite succinct way, within maybe an hour, even if we're lucky, because pujas, that's why they're quite powerful. They're set up in a way, we do in an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I mean, of course, Lama Chopa Rinpoche, my guru, would do, when we might do a puja in 1 hour, Rinpoche would spend 3-4 hours, But even for us, at our level, there's a way we can do it in an hour and a half, which can have this effect, purify obstacles, purify that which we don't want, and awaken, sort of create space in our mind for something positive to ripen. So this is what's often done in the monasteries, you see, when they perform pujas constantly for themselves, for other beings, to keep the momentum, maybe if they're doing studies, Geshe-la, who's resident teacher there, he can talk, I think, extensively about the amount of pujas they do in the monasteries, having spent so many years there. I mean, every day, I think most days they do puja there. And just even for the purposes of being able to study, keeping the mind fresh, clear, the momentum going to do so much extensive study, we can see in our Dharma practice, to keep up the momentum of our Dharma practice, for the mind to keep opening into some of the realizations, the qualities that we're praying for in the Lam Rim, we need a lot of spiritual momentum, yeah? Because in the beginning it's all very exciting, and then then we get stuck and we get lost a bit, and we get maybe lose energy, lose our motivation. So puja is a very powerful way for kind of refreshing our motivation for practice. And that's why they're done so often in the monasteries, to keep the monks refreshed, to keep the merit and the momentum going for studies, for practice. Because it's very easy to lose momentum, so we do need this kind of energy puja. Indicating purify, it also indicates purifying, giving birth in a sense to our inner goodness, creating the conditions for that to blossom. And another example is, I remember there was one time, many times when our centres had some sort of obstacles, we checked with Lama Chopa Rinpoche. It was always about doing a puja, to remove the obstacles. Or we wanted certain teachers to come, certain lamas, and there was difficulties. Do puja, because it has this succinct way of creating merit and sort of, as I say, purifying and giving birth to that which we want, creating space for that beautiful karma to ripen, not just for yourself but for others. So that's always kind of all mentioned there, So, and of course, the main space is for our own self to continue to develop insights, realizations, qualities on the spiritual path. Secret meaning of puja. So there's an outer, inner, and secret. So this comes into play. So here it says, leading us to awareness of non-duality, of appearance and emptiness. Is inseparable. So this comes into more in the realm of when they do pujas like Lama Chopa, Guru Puja. It's kind of worshipping the gurus, particularly for a practice to receive the blessings of the guru. Remember the kindness and quality of the guru. And opening inner doorways are subtle pathways to communicate or commune more deeply with the qualities of the specific guru deity already inherent within us. So Tara Puja can be done at the level of Cittamani Tara, which is the high Yoga Tantra aspect, or we can also approach it at the level of Green Tara, which is the Kriya Tantra aspect. And in this class, we're going to talk about more pujas on the level of the Kriya Tantra aspect. But for those, but I did want to mention this sort of secret meaning, because some of us here do these. I think maybe 2 or 3 of us here do these other high Yoga Tantra pujas. So this is the level of kind of quality or experience we're trying to, awaken when we do these pujas, the outer, inner and secret level. Let me just take a moment to check my notes for something else. Yeah, so for those of you who have done, some of us here have done the Lamrim, the Discovering Buddhism or Exploring Buddhism, and we have, talked about the topic of Guru devotion, seeing the Guru as Buddha, having that awareness. So once we, as we talked about in the introduction to Tantra class, once we receive an initiation into any of these practices, Medicine Buddha, Tara, Chenrezig, our business after that, our job after that, is to try and work with seeing the teacher who bestowed the initiation and the deity as inseparable. So again, that we need to use the Lamrim teachings, the Guru devotion teachings, to start to work with that. And through that practice, as that develops, remembering the kindness and the qualities, trying to bring about the awareness that the Guru and the deity are inseparable, having that as an inner experience. Then when we apply that to the puja, then that brings about this ability to have get a bit more of the secret meaning of the puja. Bring about more this experience of the inseparability of emptiness and appearance, So that comes more at the level of, it can also be lower tantra, but particularly at the high Yoga Tantra levels, and using our kind of understanding of the Buddha and the Guru being inseparable, the deity and the Guru being inseparable, applying that there, that kind of awareness starts to awaken this deeper, more secret meaning of the puja. And awaken within us this kind of experience of the deity and all the objects, the offering, everything in the puja, the appearance of the deity and the emptiness of that deity being somehow inseparable. So bringing that into the puja. So for those I'm not going to talk about that too much in this class, but for those of us who have this initiation, Medicine Buddha, Tara, or Lama Chopa, High Yoga Tantra deity aspect of Tara as well, then when we bring that around the puja, it makes it more powerful. Then we're able to access a little bit more the secret meaning of the puja. So here we have Lama Zopa Rinpoche also conducting what we call a fire puja, fire ritual. So there's different types of fire rituals. Some of us have done already the Dorji Kadro. When we come and do retreat here, we do Dorji Kadro often. That's a very more simple ritual where we're offering sesame seeds to the fire. So here Lama Zopa Rinpoche was doing what we call a fire puja. And these are done also in the Hindu tradition, across many traditions. Shaman tradition do a lot of working with fire to purify, So this is at the level of high Yoga Tantra Lama Zopa Rinpoche is doing here. And these were actually conducted by a lot of high lamas during COVID. There was many high lamas doing a lot of fire puja because they're very powerful for purification, and also for awakening. What we're doing here is we're not really offering, and we offer many substances to the fire, rice and sesame seeds and kusha grass, and they all have a different meaning as we offer them. And actually, what the fire embodies is the deity. The fire is actually the deity who's absorbing all the substances you know, and creating within us a certain merit and purification. And so during COVID, because it was such a heavy time for the world, you know, a lot of these high lamas were doing a lot of fire puja ritual. And another time these are performed is often, because what fire puja ritual does, just touching on this, if anyone is interested, you know, they awaken these particular types of activities, peaceful activity, increasing activity, power and wrath, you know. These are what we call the four enlightening activities of holy beings. So again, these are done more at the level of high yoga tantra practice. I just wanted to mention because it's a type of ritual. You know, it's also and often at this level of fire puja is done after you've done something like a high yoga tantra practice, such as Yamantaka retreat, or Vajrayogini retreat, or Tara retreat that at the level of Cittamani Tara. You would then, after you've performed the certain amount of mantras, you would then do a fire ritual, which really seals the energy of the retreat. You know, it makes it much more powerful. So that's performed at there. So I just wanted to mention that as a ritual that's done quite often, but it's also usually done when you've received these level of empowerment and you've done that level of retreat. And because they're so powerful, they were performed by many lamas during COVID, you know, for the purification of the world. And because they have this power to sort of, and this level for, you know, pacifying very, very heavy obstacles that were kind of existing in the world at that time. So, next one, why we need, so again, just continue on a little bit, why we need puja and ritual. So Lama Lundrup, Khenrimshe Lama Lundrup, was the abbot of our mother monastery in Nepal, Kopan, for almost 40 years. He passed away in 2011, and his new incarnation is about 10, 12, maybe 12 or 13 years old now. But anyway, he was asked to give a talk on the, you know, why we need puja and ritual. So this is just a couple of points he made. Very important points. No ritual, no realization. So again, Lama himself did pujas many days, all days in the monastery, you know. Without ritual, realization is impossible. Ritual is very important because right now we are ordinary beings, right? So from the Buddhist perspective, an ordinary being is someone... What's an ordinary being? Bay knows. Anyone? Maybe Asha, do you know an ordinary being?
No, I mean, like us as human beings,
We are ordinary beings. What does that
we
mean, that we're ordinary?
we are still going through the cycles of samsara. We're still in the samsara.
Yes, good. Another definition of that is someone who has not had a direct perception of emptiness. Yeah, so they both mean the same. So an ordinary being here means ourselves. We haven't had a direct perception of the nature of our mind, the nature of reality, that which is able to liberate us from samsara. That's the liberating quality, you know, of the mind. Realization in emptiness, that which liberates us, as Asha says, from the cycle of existence, conditioned existence, samsara. So right now, I mean, we can all agree it's not easy to meditate, right? You know, there's these high levels, like, you know, when we study the Lamrim, you know, the gradual path to enlightenment, we see, you know, these great qualities of calm abiding, you know, being able to settle the mind on an object for up to 4 hours. You know, that is someone who's completed calm abiding. It's very difficult for us to watch our breath, to settle on an object for a few minutes. Yeah. And also to discuss, you know, to really waken out of, to get this direct perception of emptiness, you know, deeper insights into the nature of reality, you know, to really understand the teachings more and more in deeper levels. It's not easy, you know. So this is why ritual, and this is why Lama say, when you have a full realization of emptiness, that's when you come out of being an ordinary being. when you have direct perception of emptiness, nature and mind, reality, you become an arhat, then you can do much more meditation, you know. Mind's very calm, peaceful, relaxed. You don't really need so much the outer, you need less the outer aspects of ritual and practice, you know. Mind can go very into deep levels of meditation. But right now, we need more merit than meditation. So first comes ritual. Not that ritual's separate from meditation, but then comes meditation. So ritual is a meditation, but we're keeping our mind, because our mind's like kind of busy anyway, it needs something to focus on, maybe not more than one thing, then we use ritual, you know. Because again, that outer aspect of ritual and puja helps to draw the mind in and receive the blessing of that particular deity. That then helps to settle the mind into meditation. Creates inner conditions for our meditation on the Lam Rim, our meditation on, you know, bodhicitta, wisdom realizing emptiness, to go a bit more deeper. So we need these outer aspects. As I mentioned at the beginning of the class, it's not superstition, you know, ritual, you know. And we may have had that experience when we're younger. That's why there can be a bit of an aversion to ritual in the beginning, because it just looks like some sort of blind faith thing, you know, or empty meaning, you know. But as we're going to discover next week, when I go into the different types of offerings we make and the prayers, we can see each one is a meditation. Each one has a meaning and an impact on our mind to open and develop our mind. But also we need to be careful for, because it is possible that ritual becomes sort of empty, you know, empty meditation. That's definitely possible. So here the power of our motivation is very important, because it's true in any tradition. Playing drums and bells and chanting prayers with no real motivation behind the intention, or maybe it's a kind of negative intention, you know. Pride, to look good, to look spiritual, to look holy, you know. Look at me with all my instruments, I look really holy here, you know. I look like I'm doing something. We have to be careful, you know, because we don't know what's going on the inside of other people's minds, so we just need to watch what's going on the inside of our mind. So this can happen in any spiritual tradition where ritual does become kind of empty, you know. So that's why some of us we might have experienced some of that when we were younger. Anyone have that experience where we're just kind of got a little bit of an aversion to ritual because they maybe going with our family and not understanding what it meant? Yeah, Madhulika.
Yeah, the Hindu tradition has a lot of pujas, just like I'm learning in the Buddhist tradition.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised by the rituals that are being introduced here. And when I was young, I was always questioning the need to do those rituals, because traditionally the Hindu religion is filled with it for every aspect, and so as a result of that, it became almost meaningless when you have hundreds of rituals that you can do to the hundreds of gods that there are, without a clear explanation of why we are doing what we're doing. And so there is a notion of a superstition, disbelief, and I don't really want to do this, and even revolt, and questioning, like, why am I doing this? Why am I even wasting time? But I think that what Buddhism teaches us is, or at least what I'm learning right now, is like there is a reason behind every one of these things. As long as I, or whoever the person is learning about that religion, is open to being curious and learning why we are doing, or exploring and constantly asking yourself why, the answers will come to you. It may take time.
Yeah. Thank you, Madhulika. Anyone else experience that? Maybe going to church around their family, just feeling like, why are we doing this? What's the point? Or even maybe going into a Buddhist temple for the first time and getting a little bit of aversion, you know, because you see all the bowls and offerings and maybe people doing a puja or... No? Okay. So, oh, Kate.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave you hanging because I was shaking your head. I didn't know if you were asking us or not. I certainly
Yes.
think because my family came from a Christian background and it never resonated with me, and I really kind of despised everything to do with it because it didn't make any sense to me, the God and the rituals, and it was all forced, and I had to go to church, and you had to do everything. And then when people died, we had to do the Catholic rituals, and it's like literally meant not very much. And so I became to despise religion, really. So even trying to study at Buddhism, it was like I just felt fear and anger walking to my first Buddhist class. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really good. Anyway, so it is hard, very, very hard for me to do this stuff. And I really do appreciate these explanations because it gives me the thinking I need to get past the difficulties. But yeah, so it is very familiar. And I thought, as a funny part, this picture is such a good example, at least for me in any case, of like what like American white people are supposed to kind of be like, and what Sunday church is supposed to be. That
Yeah.
looks like very ideal, but ultimately, like it just didn't have much meaning for me anyway.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Someone else raised their hand again. Madalika, did you raise again?
Yeah, I just raised it because I think that Kate talks about such a strong negative emotion, and I completely echo with that because I would think that what a waste of time this is, because it does nothing, and definitely there is a certain derision and an emotion involved in trying to identify why we're doing what we're doing. But with the realization now, it is incredibly mind-blowing and makes it, at least for me, all the more important.
Yeah, I think it's important to, yeah, it's really all boils down to your intention. Because I think even in the Buddhist, I mean, of course, in the Christian tradition, in the Hindu tradition, these rituals all have a lot of meaning. There's no question. I have no doubt about that. Where they came from originally had a lot of meaning. What different practitioners are putting into that practice, we don't know. What's their intention and motivation? But there's no question that they all had a lot of meaning. Being able to hold the meaning over hundreds of years, thousands of years, in a way where it's still benefiting people's minds, understanding the ritual. And not just doing it for face value because the neighbours are doing it, That's what you're supposed to do in the village, That's another, that I don't know, That's all individual, I mean, I remember when I was younger as well, I didn't go to church for very long. My mother took me to Sunday school, maybe up to about the age of 6, 7, and then we stopped doing it. And then she even had to, I don't know if you do this in America, but in Scotland, I don't know if they even do it now, but they would send these envelopes to your house and you had to put donations in the envelopes to take to church. And at some point, my mum, even, I was quite proud of her, she decided, well, it's not really, I don't really believe in God, or, she just decided to stop doing it, because she didn't have enough faith herself, So even though maybe some of the neighbours were doing and all that, she just made a decision that she's just doing it for the sake of saving face, So she stopped doing it. And of course that's, and so on some level that's a good because the motivation wasn't correct anyway, But on another level, of course, I think in all these traditions, ritual does have a lot of meaning, but it's possible even our parents around us, they lose sight of the meaning. And we tend to just do them for worldly reasons, we have very strong worldly motivation. So I think as us coming in our generation, we see that and we're like, we just get an aversion. It's like, what's the point? It's just to be with the neighbours, or to have a nice life, or to have more wealth. We're just doing it for more superficial reasoning. So that, I think that's why in Western society we've slowly developed a kind of aversion to it, because we can see the reasoning behind it's kind of much more superficial, not really understood. So we kind of have to start again, but in a way that's good, because I think even in the Tibetan tradition, I think sometimes some of the young monks go to puja and they don't know why they're there, because it's so much part of what they're doing. It's so much in the system, So, and this happens in religions where, when they're in cultures for centuries and centuries, we can sometimes lose sight of the inner meaning. And they become very much just at the level of outward, worldly, superficial motivation. So we're very fortunate, actually, in a way, as Westerners, we have to start from the beginning. Hopefully not holding on to the aversion, as Kate was saying, but just kind of moving beyond that and really understanding not just the outer, but the inner and the kind of secret meaning, so we can benefit from ritual, not just for ourselves, but we can use it to benefit others, because they have a power in them across all the traditions. There's no question, I mean, all the holy beings who have achieved realizations in the Buddhist and other traditions, they rely on ritual because they know what to put into the ritual with their minds, what the motivation is. So let me just share the screen again. So basically, when we're in the Buddhist, from the Buddhist perspective, what is our motivation, Our motivation is to... it's really coming from the three principal aspects of the path. That's the motivation we come with. And whatever understanding we have of that, we try to bring that as our initial motivation. And what are they? Renunciation, So coming with a little bit of feeling of renunciation, this kind of, as Asha was mentioning, some sense of an awareness, a remembrance that we're in samsara, we're in conditioned cyclic existence, We're under the control of karma and delusion. Our mind's not functioning properly, We're under the control of ignorance, wrong view of reality. That's the root of the problem. In some sense, of kind of using this puja to create merit, to purify, to get ourselves out, our mind, out of samsara, and also for all beings to get out of samsara, So bringing about, that kind of thought process as we start the puja. Even though right now it's effortful, we don't have effortless renunciation, That's not coming spontaneously in our mind day and night. I think for most of us, I don't know for sure, but, we're trying to put effort into these realizations. We don't have a realization of emptiness, but we try to bring that, whatever understanding of emptiness we have, to the puja. And of course, as Lama Chopa Rinpoche says, the key thing, is this kind of the best puja is our compassion, Minimum, we think that we're not just doing this puja for ourselves, and sometimes we specifically perform pujas for others when they pass away, when they have health problems, when they have obstacles in their life. We come to the puja, the practice, to dedicate for them, so for compassion for them. And of course, whatever devotion, whatever faith, conviction we have in that particular deity, or in our gurus or teachers, we try them, to come with that. And of course, devotion takes time to develop. Our conviction, our connection with that deity, their qualities, that takes some time. So we're just doing over time, and even to develop a deeper mind of devotion. That we need a lot of merit. We need a lot of purification. So this is what puja brings. Merit and purification. As I've said in all the classes, whether it's Discovering Buddhism, whether it's Introduction to Tantra, for us right now, as Lama Lundrup was saying, ritual's a very powerful way for us to create merit. A fortuitous, fortunate state of mind that's kind of slowly able to waken up into realizations, and to purify and get rid of the stuff we don't want, the karmas that are blocking realizations. So this is what, and this is an image here of Lama Chopa Rinpoche actually during COVID, doing a puja for a buffalo that he had rescued. So I thought that was quite sweet, you know. So so these are, yeah, this is kind of, you know, this is like the key point of just, you know, taking a few minutes to really clarify your intention. That's what brings the power to the puja. That's what stops it from becoming worldly, empty, just convention, just tradition, you know. But actually thinking I'm doing this puja to develop, you know, so I can create the inner causes and conditions to develop my mind on the spiritual path, and also to benefit whatever beings that we're praying for. So I think because puja is so powerful, even if we do come with a sort of more worldly motivation, you know, it's not completely pure dharma, we still get benefit, there's no question, because of the power of the ritual. But I think it's a lot, it's a little bit blocked more, you know, because there's more attachment to the outcome of this life, you know. We want something to ripen for us in this life. So we try and come with as little attachment as possible, but just with this purity and motivation, you know. Doing it for ourselves and all sentient beings. So a little bit like, you know, what pujas are, you know, how we approach them, the outer, inner, and secret level. And of course, there's different reasons why we perform pujas, you know, as well, for general success, for healing. So, of course, Medicine Buddha is very powerful for healing. But also, you know, and also there's, you know, sometimes we have pujas can also be performed because sometimes we have a physical ailment, but it can come from outer obstacles, outer harms, like we say naga harm, spirit harm. You know, so sometimes these are beyond our ability to see. Other beings who still exist in this realm, you know, are around us, but we can't necessarily see them. So actually Medicine Buddha is powerful for this type of practice. And there's other pujas that we can perform because even we have a sickness, but of course the cause is because we have some karma to experience it, but the conditions might be coming from other beings, nagas and spirits that we can't see. You know, so that's quite a common type of puja to do as well. And sometimes you do need to get someone who can do divination or more, who can see, to be able to say, okay, this is the type of puja you need, because your sickness isn't just coming from, you know, a regular disturbance of your inner elements, you know, your body, or a virus or something. It's coming from some more external condition that's harming you. Madhulika, you had a question?
Yeah, I suppose I understand for healing, and I suppose removing obstacles also makes sense, but I just don't understand doing a puja for wealth. Don't get me wrong, I know even in the Hindu rituals, there are pujas that's done for wealth or for the deceased or for health, but isn't that going to increase attachment? Because wealth as such is an object of attachment, and so is devotion towards deceased. So why do a puja to increase attachment?
Anyone want to comment on Madhulika's question? Anybody want to share what their thoughts are on that one? It's a good question. I thought it might bring up something.
Healing, right? Like that just... Why do you want to heal somebody?
Why would it? So
yeah, I mean, you're attached to your body. You're doing it because you're attached to your body. You want to reduce pain, but why?
No, it's a good question, Sam.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that if people don't have enough money, or if like a Dharma center doesn't have enough money, that causes suffering. So there could be like that sort of paradigm if you look at it that way.
Yes. No, it's good, Sam. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there is a wealth ritual called Zambala, you know, and there's a white and a yellow and a black Zambala, and it's a short ritual, and you offer water to the holy body. So, of course, you probably have a particular aversion, Madhulika, because I'm sure you were doing a lot of your maybe wealth rituals when you were growing up, you know. So, of course, a lot of the time it's for, give me the money, you know. But again, it really boils down to intention. You know, when the FPMT started, we had no money. Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe, they had the inner wealth realizations. And on many levels, once you've got inner realizations, you don't need wealth, you know. You have the inner wealth, you know. But, you know, to benefit others, we needed centres, we needed, you know, all number of things, you know, resources to be able to then, you know, to how come these centres began in the FPMT due to mostly because of the faith and the devotion of all the early day students, you know, and they continue because so many people give and offer their time, you know, to support these centres, which is wonderful. But we need resources, you know, we need wealth, even, you know, Ocean of Compassion, they'll tell you they need money to run the centre, yeah. So we can't completely neglect that as ordinary beings, you know. And as so yes, we can do wealth pujas, and actually as we go on to see the particular benefits of Medicine Buddha, one of them is to bring the resources we need. Maybe not what we want. So if we change it into may we have the resources we need rather than the resources we really want, you know. That might shift the attachment more, you know. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche actually in his daily practice spent a lot of time on doing like something like the Zambala practice. And what was it? And, you know, I can say, you know, as a student at Lama Zopa Rinpoche had no attachment. You know what I mean? Rinpoche received a lot of wealth from devoted donors, and it all went out the same way. It just was like a river. It flowed through Rinpoche to wherever it was needed, you know. But Rinpoche attracted so much wealth because of his purity of being a holy being, you know, and also because he did a lot of wealth practices because the organisation needed wealth. They had nothing, you know. In the early days there was nothing, you know. Now we're quite fortunate, and a lot of it has come from certainly from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. You know, Rinpoche did so much to support all the different centre services and projects. But it's also come because as an organisation we do many pujas regularly, you know, and what you pray in the pujas to have the needs, right? So I'm putting wealth there because we do need a certain amount of wealth. You're right though, we don't want it to get it in the realm, I'm just doing this puja to get a bunch of money, because at the same time with that motivation, the motivation's not so pure, so the benefit you receive is not going to be as high, you know. You just don't have that openness to receive what you need because there's a block in your motivation. But yeah, it's true as well what Sam said, some people do need resources sometimes, so maybe it's good to do a puja for them and pray, you know. We need resources to practice Dharma, the centres need resources, you need resources to go to retreats and praxis, maybe to go to the East sometime, we need that, you know. So that's the motivation that you bring to bear in these for the puja, you know. But thank you, glad you brought it up. The other one here, this is in the level of High Yoga Tantra. So there's also the Vajrasattva Tsog that we performed, was it last month or about 6 weeks ago, Ocean of Compassion. So sometimes when we take initiations, we have commitments to do what we call a Tsog practice, which we're not going to cover too much in this puja, but sometimes you'll see at centres they offer what we call Haruka Vajrasattva Tsog. And that is a different type of puja where it's fulfilling a commitment and a different level with the initiation you took. And again, it's more to develop this secret experience of bliss and emptiness in our mind. You know, that's what the purpose of Tsog is, waking up that sort of secret experience, that deeper inner experience of the nature of mind, the qualities of bodhicitta and emptiness, through our devotion to our spiritual teachers, our samayas and our commitments with our spiritual teachers. So those particular, they're very powerful as well, you know. So we do them kind of twice a month. For the deceased, so again, very important. I was just speaking to someone, again, a couple of days ago, a friend here, you know. So, you know, sometimes we feel like when some people, our friends, family pass away, we feel a bit helpless, you know. And we certainly feel grief. And there's a sense of kind of, if we don't have a spiritual practice, we don't have a refuge, a spiritual refuge, sometimes we don't know what to do, you know. So this is what we do when people pass away, you know. We do practice, we do puja, you know. And I remember I was just sharing with a friend who's struggling a little bit with loss, you know, loss of friends and family moving out of our life. And as we get older, it's not new beings coming into our life, it's people leaving our life, yeah, friends, family. So we need to prepare for that, you know. What are we going to do when the grief comes, when the sense of loss comes, you know? So if we have a spiritual refuge, that's what we do for them, you know. Of course, they may not be Buddhists, and we don't want to throw our Buddhist practice onto them, you know. They may not want that. But they may need it, you know. So we can do that for them in whatever way suits, you know, either privately or we can do it in their presence. But it's, you know, it's a way, especially when we have karmic connections with people, it's a very powerful way to help them at the time of death, you know. We have a karmic connection, so our prayers will benefit them. Lama Zopa Rinpoche was always very, very clear about that, you know. This is what we can do when people pass away. Of course, there's a funeral and this and that, but prayers for their consciousness we can affect, you know, because of our connection. So when my I've been a nun, maybe in the Dharma, maybe about 10 years, maybe slightly less, 8 years. And I remember my first kind of stronger experience of someone in the family passing away was my stepfather. And it was quite sudden. We didn't expect it, you know. He was in his mid-60s and just found out that he just passed away like that. So, of course, when it's sudden, there's even more of a kind of shock or grief, you know, that kind of sense of loss, you know, a little bit. And I did feel it because he wasn't my father, birth father, but I lived with him for many years, you know. He took care of us for many years. So there was a stronger karmic connection. So, you know, I felt this loss, but then it was like, okay, what do I do, you know? And then as soon as I did the Medicine Buddha Puja, I could feel like this kind of mind lighter. Felt like, oh, the mind, that kind of grief or loss was already a bit lighter. I felt like, oh, I'm actually... And the thing is with my stepfather, he was very anti-religion. You know, he's from the generation of the 70s, 80s, especially in the UK, and no interest in religion or anything. You know, I mean, he found my lifestyle quite challenging. Didn't know what to ask, you know. It was kind of awkward when I went home. It's like... he wasn't negative, but he just couldn't relate, you know. So he would ask me something like, "How is the weather over there?" You know. I mean, we've all probably got family like that, you know. They can't relate to some aspects, so that's how he could. And how many people come there to the centre or something, you know. So, but you find quite difficult. So I couldn't. There wasn't any interest to talk about it or anything like that, which is fine, you know. But then somehow when he passed away, I felt like, and he had a lot of difficulties, you know. He was alcoholic, you know, and that went on till the death time, you know. A little bit less the last few years. So you know, and there was no openness to hear, maybe it's good to stop drinking, and you know, there wasn't any, you couldn't access him in any way to hear anything. So somehow I felt like when he passed away, because we're in a much more subtle space, you know. All our concepts, the consciousness is in its pure state, you know. There's not all these concepts of this life and what's good and bad and this and that. I could feel like, well, he's going through this bardo state. His mind is in a different level of consciousness. It's more open. And I actually could feel that my prayers were helping him. Now. Maybe not when he was alive, because there was so many, like, blocks, you know. It's okay, you know, that's how it was. But somehow at that time, when the mind's more open, more subtle, it's almost like then you can sometimes maybe help more, you know. So that's why when our prayers, I think, can be very powerful. And Rinpoche really used to emphasise how important it was to do prayers for people who passed away, and especially maybe those who don't have any spiritual background, you know. Of course, if people are Christian, you might not want to do Medicine Buddha practice in their presence or around them at the death time, but you can do it somewhere else, you know. It's better to do what maybe fits for them, you know. But it doesn't mean we can't do our own prayers at that time. So it's a very important time to do prayers for others. Actually, the Medicine Buddha is the main one that Lama Zopa Rinpoche, recommended at that time. So other times, so again, just to emphasise the power of puja, some of us maybe keep up to date with what's going on with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, But His Holiness now, as we know, doesn't really teach, you know. I mean, of course, in some level, His Holiness is always teaching by His presence, but He's not giving formal teachings. So what does His Holiness do now, you know? Well, some of us might know, 3 times a week, His Holiness meets something like 300 to 500 people. There's public audiences. You can go and attend a public audience with His Holiness. So people, literally 300 to 500 people line up, and you each get like 2 or 3 seconds in the presence of His Holiness. And He looks at you, and you just, you know, you do this, or He touches you, or it's absolutely amazing, you know, it's powerful, because I did that last year. So this is the way His Holiness is kind of being with people now. He taught over the world extensively for 40, 50 years, but now because of his age, His Holiness can't travel, he's not teaching in the same way, not even in India really now. So what he's doing is meeting, you know, hundreds, thousands of people every week, up to 2,000 people, and also what's been offered for His Holiness by many Buddhist organisations, the different traditions in Tibetan Buddhism mostly, offering these long life pujas. Because His Holiness has said many times, he has the aspiration to live up to something like 113 years old, you know. So from our side, these different Buddhist organisations are offering long life pujas for His Holiness, for us to create the cause for that, you know. So that's something else. Sometimes when we have life obstacles ourselves, you know, we maybe feel like you can have long life pujas performed for you. And this is what we're doing for His Holiness, doing all these long life pujas to create the karma for His Holiness to live a long life. And this is one our organisation offered in 2023. So these are just a few of the different reasons why we can do puja, why we do puja, you know. And how many of us are familiar with this liberation calendar? Let me see how many hands. I think quite a few of us are, but some of us might not be. So, or maybe I should ask, let me see. Is there any of us, maybe put out your hand, who are not familiar with this calendar? Neil, Asha, Kate. Good, so there's a few of us, yeah? Madhulika. So what I wanted to do is just, I wanted to show you the calendar and just a little bit show you, because there's certain pujas that we can do, and there's also certain times when it's good to do puja and practice. And for this, so all of us know, because this is something each one of us can purchase very easily online, and maybe Bay might be able to put, I didn't get the link together, sorry. But Bay might be able to. I thought I'd opened the link.
Under chat.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not seeing. Sorry, I thought I had opened the link to this. 1 second. Anyway, what's in this? I was going to show you inside the calendar, but somehow the link's not coming up. So, I won't be able to do that this time. But basically, inside that calendar, it shows you, and Bay's giving you the link, and I think it costs about $10 to download online, and we're only in May, so you've got another 7 months of the year where you can use it. And it actually shows you days where it's good to do pujas, good to do certain rituals, certain practices, and even for monastics, there's days when it's good to cut your hair or not cut your hair. Now, that could be for anyone. Because we all get haircuts, yeah. I mean, we use it as monastics, but you could all use that, you know. So it's all based on Tibetan astrology, the Tibetan astrological lunar calendar. And we have a very precious teacher who lives in San Francisco, Geshe Dakpa, who's skilled in Tibetan astrology. So I believe he still is, he's in his 90s now, he put together this calendar for us on an annual basis. So you can use it to check what are the good days and the bad days, because some days there's unfavourable days, even for at the centres when we hang prayer flags, you know, there's good days and bad days. Good days to start a spiritual practice or a retreat. There's particular days when it's particularly powerful to do pujas and rituals. So in this case, what we do at Vajrapani is we generally offer the pujas. When we do a Tara Puja, Medicine Buddha Puja, we offer them in full moons and new moons. Because as most of us know, that those days have more power, you know, they have a certain karmically powerful energy. But there's other days in the Tibetan month or in the Tibetan year when the merits or the energy is particularly high and powerful, but it's powerful to do practice. So you can find that out in that calendar. And if I remember, I might just pull it up next week for you, because I opened the link but somehow it's closed again, and just show you a little bit of guide to that calendar, how it works, you know, because it is quite important just for your daily life as well to navigate, you know, successful days, least successful days, when there's good energy, not so good energy. They're called favourable days, unfavourable days, very favourable days. So I think you can find that quite helpful just for your daily use. Mary?
Thank you, Venerable. Well, I look forward to that discussion next week about the calendar, because I'm always confused about the time zone. Like, is it in India time, or how do I adjust it?
So I'll tell you what we'll do next week, Mary. I'll make sure I have the calendar up, and then I'll go through it that time, yeah? Because I want to bring it up to show a few of the days, and I'll let you know then. Is that okay? Mary?
Yes, thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do it next week, and I'll make sure I've got the link up for you next week. Thank you. All right, so next. So we'll just start. We've got another 10 minutes, so we'll just touch into the benefits of this particular Medicine Buddha Puja and practice. So again, maybe a bit Madalika, it looks like it's an ordinary motivation here, but really what Rinpoche is saying is, and this is, I have to say, for us, even more so than Tara Puja, this is the one that Rinpoche really promoted for us, you know, for the centres, for the success of the centres, and for the success of those who do this practice, who come to the centres, who engage in the pujas. You know, it's very important to make everything easy, life is hard, you know, life is tough. So the Buddhas, you know, of course they want us to get out of samsara, but they also don't want us to have a chaotic, difficult life, you know. So of course on some level they do help us, they want us to be happy, you know, on all levels, you know, not just this high level spiritual level, you know. So Medicine Buddha, because of their power of their prayers, it's very important. It makes our life easy. So you can maybe we're so full, we have to work so hard, we have no time for Dharma practice, you know. So when you do Medicine Buddha practice regularly, what it does starts to create more conditions in your life, maybe even at that level, to be able to practice Dharma, to have more space in your life, more resources to go to teachings, to listen, reflect and meditate. So it's not just about creating inner conditions, you know, realizations and, you know, all these things that we want, but we also need, don't we need external conditions to be able to practice. You know, that's the level we're at. We're not like high-level Buddhists and saints who can just go off into the mountain and meditate in caves. You know, we're not there yet. So we need a lot, and this was a huge part of how Lama Zopa Rinpoche benefited in the West, you know, bringing about the centres, the teachers, the resources. So for Westerners, we can learn the Dharma, reflect on the Dharma, then meditate on the Dharma, you know, and we need a lot of conditions for that. So this is why, from Rinpoche's side, even more so, I mean, really both, as centres to do Medicine Buddha Puja was so important, you know, for that, for our centres, and for you as individuals, Medicine Buddha practice, to have the freedom, the resources, what you need in your life to really be able to support your inner spiritual practice. So why is Medicine Buddha, why is it particularly so powerful? Right, so what makes it more, has a certain power? So right now, we are in Buddhist cosmology, we often hear this, and it's mentioned in the ritual, we are in degenerate times. Right, that sounds a bit depressing. But, you know, from the view of Buddhist cosmology, we are in this time of degeneration of these 5 degenerations. So where did humans originate from? So from the Buddhist perspective, we originated from what we call the form realm gods. So these are like gods who have like light bodies, you know, they don't have the body, they're very light bodies. Their senses are much more refined than us. You know, they don't have to wash and bathe, and, you know, like, they don't experience birth, old age, sickness and death in the way that we do. Now, they're not liberated from cyclic existence, but their whole they have a much more, it's almost like a heaven, you know. It's almost like the Buddhist equivalent to heaven, you know. You go there because of the power of your merit, you know. So you have, your body doesn't experience pain and sickness and any of the way, old age in the way that we do, and all the senses are refined, so everything you experience through the senses has much more pleasure and enjoyment, you know. So it's not completely out of samsara, if we understand that, but it's a very kind of, you know, high level existence, purer level existence, and in those states you have a very long lifespan, you know, as well, up to 80,000 years. So again, not to go deeply into this, because what we mean by degenerate times has, I think, there's many ways you can access that as well. So I'm just going to go from one access and just touch on this. But right now, so we began kind of with this level of lifespan at 80,000 years, according to Buddhist cosmology, and over, you know, eons, thousand years. Slowly we degenerate into having a lifespan of 10 years. You know? So right now we're at the point of 100 years. So the Buddha appeared, Shakyamuni Buddha appeared 2,500 years ago, when we were in a lifespan of generally, you know, 80 to 100 years. That's where we are. We can say, oh, well, right now people are living longer, you know, than they did 50 years ago, but we're talking about thousands and thousands of years, eons, you know, not just like our small 100, 200 years view, you know. So this happens over a very, very long length of time, you know. So basically we're at this point, and, you know, the further we get away from that 80,000, we're in a kind of degeneration. So even if we can't quite, that's hard to wrap our minds around. But we can think, if we break that down, degeneration of the mind, well, we can see, so what does degenerate times means? You know, degenerate times means there's a degeneration of the mind. You know, so mind meaning the mind of sentient beings are a bit more gross, you know. So when we're in that subtle level of God, we have a little bit less delusions, mind's a bit more lighter. You know, we're not impacted by the karma and delusion as strongly. Still there, but there's a lot more heavy delusion in the mind, ignorance, karma. We can see it's not easy to understand the Buddha's teachings, you know, the Four Noble Truths. We have to study and think and purify. And you know, at the time of the Buddha, their minds were so, you know, that generation at the time of the Buddha, their minds were so clear, so purified, that even just the Buddha taught one teaching, people, you know, some of the students, the audience would get instant realizations. They hear the Four Noble Truths and become arhats. Us, we're like, well, I don't know, you know. I think I'm not suffering really, you know. I think I'm okay, you know. So a lot of aversion, you know. We don't want to hear, or we don't quite get it. It's not easy to hear. So, you know, our minds are not easy. They're tough nuts, you know. So, so that degeneration of mind, you know, degeneration of lifespan, as I said. Degeneration of sentient beings, again, that just kind of goes into our minds being a bit more stubborn. And from the side of the Buddhas, our minds are more difficult to subdue, you know. We have more aversion, not easy to hear, like that, you know. So that's similar to mind, really. Degeneration of time, so again, we can relate to this. I mean, more wars, more epidemics, more natural disasters. You know, and we're not just talking about 200 or 300 years here as well. We're talking about in the last 1,000-something years, 2,000 in this particular time we're moving into. There's a proliferation of more wars, epidemics, and we can see with the environment, you know, the degeneration in the environment, natural disasters, and that's really evident right now, you know. And a degeneration in the view, which again relates a little bit to the mind of us sentient beings. A little bit harder to really think and accept karma, causality, the view of reality. It's not easy, you know, for us to accept and hear this. So this is what we mean by degeneration, and this becomes a bit more like that the further away we get from the teachings. You would say any holy being, you know. I mean, look, Christ came to this world, 2,000 something years ago as well. And I think we can probably say it's not easy for to keep the teachings fresh, you know, to keep a clear understanding of the teachings for other beings to accept, you know. So I think with any holy being, any saint that comes into this world, as the longer they're out of the world, the teachings do degenerate outwardly and also in the minds of the beings, you know, because the further away from the time that saint, through his presence, had such a power on the minds of those sentient beings, and it's not easy to preserve the teachings. Fortunately, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the teachings are very well preserved, you know, so it's really just up to us. There's no excuse there, you know, so it brings a bigger sense of responsibility. So this is, so just to finish, because we're getting to 8:30, so this is why is Medicine Buddha, we're in these degenerate times, why Medicine Buddha is so powerful? Because the Medicine Buddha made prayers, particular prayers to benefit sentient beings in this time. During the time of degeneration, when we get further away from the time of the Buddha being on this earth, you know. So the teachings are, as I understand, are going to abide in this world something like 4,500 to 5,000 years. They've been here 2,500 years already. So, the Medicine Buddha, they were bodhisattvas, and I'll talk to this a bit more. But they were bodhisattvas when they were practicing the path. They, you know, with their clairvoyance, they could see that as the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha disappear in the world, you know, become further away, the minds of sentient, not disappear, but as the Buddha's, you know, leaves the world, the longer he's away, there's a degeneration in the mind of the sentient beings. It's more difficult, more external problems, more internal obstacles. So they made special prayers to benefit us. We were the ones that were close to their heart, near and dear ones. So there's a special karmic connection between their prayers and our situation right now. Because we're in this degenerate time, and they made their prayers were focused to particularly benefit us. So this practice has a particular, we say, power right now because of that. So I'm going to stop there because we're on time. I don't want to go over time. Thank you for some of your questions, and I also want to just encourage you. If there's any particular questions about puja or ritual, whether it's the content of the puja, whether it's some of the, you know, the mudras, the way we do puja, I maybe just take, you know, please write it down, because I want to try and cover that possibly in the last class. Anything in this 3 classes we haven't been able to cover that you maybe want to ask about, and maybe I'd like you to bring it next week, you know. Because in the last class, maybe we can cover that. Because what I'd like to do in the last class is do the course in person to help some of those who, how many of us, because I know quite a few of us actually can't do it in person, but I'd like to do it in person for those of us who might want to learn some of the mudras. How many of us here could come in person? Maybe, you could count if everyone puts their hand up. Who could come in person for the last class, which will be the 26th. Do you get a count on the numbers, Bae?
5.
5. Well, that's a good number. So I think what we're going to do is we'll do it in person. And of course, those in person will find it easier with the mudras, but I'm going to try and make up a couple of short videos as well, because it's very nice to do some of this stuff, isn't it, during the puja? I mean, it's a form of offering, you know, and it's often difficult for us to learn. And even in the Medicine Buddha Puja, even without having an initiation, there's 2 or 3 of the mudras that you can do during that puja, just so you start to feel you can engage a little bit with some of that practice, and whether it's doing the Dorjian bell or doing this kind of more elaborate prostration mudra. So we're going to do the last class in person, and I'll make up a couple of videos as well, so that I can share some of the mudras with you as well. Madhulika?
Oh, no, that was a hand for the...
Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay, right. So let's just take a couple of minutes to dedicate. And if you want to use, as I said, If you want to read up on anything during the week, we have the Power to Mantra book that I think Bay put up the link for. So please use that. There's a section on the Medicine Buddha. I don't have the page number, but it's quite clear when you get the book. So I'm going to share the prayers that we just do at the end. We'll just do a couple of prayers, but just taking a moment in our way just to, again, what kind of, hopefully something, something came to mind here tonight that we can take away with us, think about, we learned, we want to reflect on more. Maybe just taking a moment to bring that to mind. And then dedicating all the positive energy, as much as we can, for all sentient beings' happiness. The purpose of the Dharma, even though it feels like a struggle at times, the purpose is to bring about everlasting peace and happiness within our minds, and to be able and capable to bring that in the hearts and minds of all sentient beings. And how do we do that? By actualizing bodhicitta, by realizing emptiness. These are the two ultimate states of happiness. So we step by step move in that direction, through the power of listening to the teachings, reflecting, meditating, which includes using ritual and puja to collect merit and purify. We need all these bases to move along the path. Chanju senju rinpoche mage panam gyurshi geba nyamba meba yi gonne gondu pelwasho. May the precious view of emptiness not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. And we dedicate for His Holiness's long life, incomparable kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. So that's like a short long life puja when we do His Holiness's long life prayer. And we're also praying for our own long life and all those who are practicing virtue, have a good heart, benefit others. May they all have a long life. Human life is so precious because it affords us the opportunity to create merit, purify, and always continue to create the cause for good future rebirths up to enlightenment. So all those who have human rebirth, we dedicate that they have a long life too, especially those who are creating goodness, good hearts, benefiting others. Thank you so much, everyone.